You'll be asked for consent. Awesome, thank you. So first, since we're already, yes.
Jamie, I'm on my phone, so I'm gonna send you the the thing that I have.
Oh, okay. Well, okay, so our moderator for tonight, the topic is navigating climate and environmental justice as Black LGBTQIA leaders and members that don't know their leaders yet. And I'm poking at someone there. But our moderator tonight is going to be PK McCary. I will introduce her as she, her. PK is a mentor, a teacher, a writer, a storyteller, an artist, an international interfaith peacekeeper, and so many other things. And also very well adept and works in graphics and media and is just a jewel. I hope that was a good introduction, PK, because I'm just a big fan. Okay, and then I'm gonna go to this real quick and then hand it over. So these are panelists for tonight, or roundtable speakers. Ashton P. Woods, he's an unapologetically Black man who's openly gay and uses he, him pronouns. He's a Katrina refugee and Harvey survivor who was out assisting communities during the storm and after. Since 15 years old, Ashton has advocated for equity, fairness, and justice for all communities with a special focus on people living with HIV/AIDS, the LGBTQIA community. That's misspelled. Sorry about that. Fighting for the homeless, racial and criminal justice, among many other battles. Ashton is the co-founder and lead organizer for Black Lives Matter Houston, and he continues to show up in solidarity with other communities. Our next speaker is Chamesha, or Mesha Randall-Yowman, who's a 42-year-old Black lesbian female who lives in Katy with her wife. She currently works in the oil and gas industry on the corporate side and is the daughter of a local climate and environmental activist. And our third speaker is Adrian Starks, who is 16 years old and uses he, him pronouns. He is proudly Black and transgender. Adrian is a rising senior at Bel Air High School who has recently started learning about his local climate issues and has been working on getting locally involved since last year. He's also heavily involved with his GSA and Hatch Youth. And we have a few questions. PK, do you have the questions? PK? Where did she go?
Every time I tap to speak.
Okay.
Every time I tap to speak, it drops me. But
do you have the questions, Tandy? You good?
I'm good.
Okay. All right, well then I'm going to hand it over to PK. There's going to be about 2 or 3 minutes per answer, per question. We got 3 questions to allow for some time. If you are an attendee on the call, please hold all questions. When we get to the question portion, I will ask that you step back and allow Black and LGBTQIA folks in either both and or communities to go first. And I thank you all for being here. And PK, I will hand it over to you.
Tap to speak. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes.
Yes.
I think that the main question that we need to start with is, how are we going to be who we say we are? And what does it mean when we talk about intergenerational, intersectionality, and intercultural? Anybody can talk, right?
So
So
First of all,
we had three questions. Sorry, PK. I don't think you have them in front of you. I just wanted to say real quick, and you can put that in there. But the first question for the focus of the topic is how has climate change or environmental degradation or damage affected you or your community? And then if you want to put into
I
with what
I
PK
didn't
was saying,
I
yeah.
didn't get those,
Oh,
Jamie.
okay. I can go ahead and ask them, and if you want to go in between, if that's okay.
Okay, we'll do that. I didn't get
Okay.
them.
No,
Okay.
it's okay. Sorry about that. Go ahead, Ash.
so I guess I thought about answering PK's question. I guess I could answer both. They're kind of both the same. First of all, intergenerationally speaking, we can start by listening to each other actively because our lived experiences should not be treated as anecdotal. We spend too much time looking for the empirical information when in reality it's, yes, I'm from New Orleans and I also have an aversion with being called a refugee, but I also recognize that I was treated like a refugee in my own country when I came to Houston. And in reality, that looks like what happens to our property, what happens to our mental, our physical being, meaning even down to education. New Orleans schools were all chartered out after Hurricane Katrina. Like they privatized the education, right? That's one way. People's property were taking our generational wealth, right? That was passed down. We didn't know what leases were when we moved to Houston or points northeast and west because a lot of us owned our property in New Orleans. So I guess to not jump all over the board, the reality is that the systemic and institutional racism that already persists and is at the foundation of what we call America today definitely informs how we are treated during a natural disaster or when somebody decides to open up a concrete plant 3 blocks from a school or have kids are building, breathing in toxic dust or the cancer clusters in Fifth Ward. I mean, I can go all over the place, but the reality is that we have to name things, especially in the context that our legislature over the last few sessions have been legislating away our history, whitewashing information and hiding through. And so I guess the honest answer is to talk about constantly what has happened, what will happen, with a look towards the future.
And Ashton, I forgot to add this part. Could you just ask too, is there any way that you being family and a queer family, did you experience anything or no, or have you experienced anything with the climate change or environmental injustice?
I mean, honestly, I'm black and gay. I'm not black before gay and I'm not gay before black, right? I'm both. And I exist in multiple universes in that context. When we look at how folks are treated meaning within the black community and externally, um, there have been the look like, oh, that's the gay. Some people forget, that LGBT people exist in the black community, whereas there are some people who try to erase us altogether. I guess one experience is during Hurricane Harvey when we got out there and started doing mutual aid work. One of the people we were helping, we put them in a hotel for like a month, and we bucked the house and helped them get the house together, permits and all. And I just remember him telling me, "I'm not, I don't like gay people, but I love you because you're helping me." And I feel as though with environmental work in any form, and no matter how it looks, you shouldn't have to, none of us should have to be subjected to the idea that folks feel like they have the proper dominion to accept or approve of someone's existence and being, whether they on the gender identity spectrum are trans or on my spectrum where I'm cisgender and gay, in order for us to be heard and taken seriously, because that's a part of the erasure that the Republicans are taking advantage of in context of erasing a lot of our history. And when you think about in terms of climate, for example, like I-45, it reminds me of if you've ever been to New Orleans and you go down I-10, especially through the Vieux Carré or the French Quarter, and through the 6th Ward and the 9th Ward and all that, you'll see that they divided an entire community up to build a freeway. And you'll see that cuts off resources, and it increases likelihood of flooding, gentrification. There are so many ways we can look at this, but in terms of being LGBT, I think about the erasure aspect, the homophobia, the transphobia, and the idea of, oh, I just got called a fag and a nigger, and I gotta have double fight.
Yeah. Thank you. Mesha, so same question to you. How have you been affected by climate change and environmental injustice as a black gay woman? Has that made a difference? Have you experienced things in that way? Thank you.
Not as heavily. I've been affected, by my family members and family friends passing away, dealing with the Fifth Ward cancer cluster and basically my elders and people that I grew up knowing, and helped take care of me, especially because my mom was a young parent. So I got to grow up with those people in her age range, and seeing them die off, it's kind of hurtful. And also with the climate change, it affects the day-to-day enjoyment of the environment, because just, when you're younger, you grew up, you could be outside all day long, and now it hurts to go outside sometimes. Sometimes it's too hot. I get headaches and migraines. Doctors say nothing medically wrong with me, but I just know, with global change and everything like that, it's bad on me. So I really can't go out and enjoy myself like I want. I can go to work, come home, and that's about it. I really can't enjoy the environment or the atmosphere like I want to. So and then, just with everything alone, the quality of our food and everything like that, just the cost of even trying to eat healthy, just everything along with inflation and all of that. So all of that affects me, and just trying to, at one point I wanted to try to do a garden and stuff like that, and it's kind of hard with not knowing, not really being educated on that. And then with, like I said, global change, it's really kind of hard. So it's a lot of factors in it. But as far as discrimination and anything like that, I really haven't had those experiences yet. I'm gonna say yet because I'm still young and I live proud. So I don't hide it, I don't conceal it. I am who I am. And I can't say now how I would face it if I did, but I, you know, it is what it is. So I guess, when that time does come, I'll try to handle it delicately and just, and basically stand up for myself and my community.
Thank you, Mesha. Adrian, same question to you.
I'll say I am affected by a lot of climate injustice as I live in Sunnyside. And so there is a lot of, there's a concrete processing plant maybe 2 minutes from my home. It's also a food desert. It's maybe 5 or 10 minutes until the actual affordable grocery store. And it's a lot of because we're the section in my neighborhood is actively being gentrified, and there were a lot of issues that we lived with for years but weren't fixed until recently when the gentrification started happening. But with the discrimination being faced, I haven't experienced a lot of discrimination in these climate spaces here, as I've only really been in a couple of them, mostly the environmental science camp I'm in now. But a lot of the discrimination I face isn't for me being queer, it's mostly for me being Black. Because I feel kind of like the outlier in a conversation as to where I'm living the experience and they're not going to understand where I'm coming from. But yeah.
Got you. Thank you for that. And you kind of, but I think you all, in a way, the second question was, what has your experience been in, climate justice or environmental justice work? And I think y'all have kind of touched on some of that a bit. I think the third question is, so when I started looking for folks for this call, because I'm family, proudly queer, and I wanted to center Black folks for Juneteenth, and I wanted to center my queer family for Pride, and it made sense to do this. And I had a really hard time finding speakers, and I wondered why, you know. And so that's part of the reason too that I really wanted to do this call after that. So my last question would be to you all, and then you just kind of, if you want to talk about it for a minute, and then we'll take some questions. But how can we increase awareness of the intersexuality between Blackness, between queerness and all the letters that go with it, um, and climate and environmental justice work and the movement? And I guess let's let why don't you go ahead, Chamesha? I'll let you take this one first. I'll give it to you first.
Okay, I think for me, I would say we can continue to rely on our allies to advocate alongside of us. Because like as we know, there is discrimination. So if we have allies that love us wholeheartedly, but they can get the message across, and because if they're not listening to us to advocate for ourselves, then our allies, sometimes people be more prone to listen to someone that's not of this lifestyle or us being genuine, and they'll see, oh, this person's not so bad, or this, and look past that, look at the person and not the outside of what you see, or just because how they live their life or anything like that. And I call them the privileged individuals, because since they haven't experienced any type of discrimination, they can educate others of the disparity, of being discriminated against. And so like we have we're discriminated from jobs, we're discriminated from education, just all types of, under the umbrella. And there's no end to it. So I say I just have to be real that even within the community there is discrimination as well. So I think everyone just needs to be educated and understand that we're fighting for not we're fighting to be seen and heard and basically just treated equal.
Thank you, Chamesha. Adrian or Ashton, I don't know who to pick, so whoever comes unmuted and goes first. And you're off. Ashton.
So I'll take a different tack. I think people got really comfortable when Biden got back in. And I remember the night of the elections, I stated, don't get complacent like we were when Barack was in, or we'll experience another 2016. It doesn't mean just the election. It means that not only do allies have to be allies, it means that allies must be accomplices. It goes a little further than just showing up and speaking for me in a room. No, what accomplices do in the context of connecting climate justice and justice overall is helping to create the space and bringing people in to speak for themselves. I don't believe in supporting or being a person who speaks for the voiceless. I believe in being a space builder where the voiceless feels like they have a voice so where they can speak for themselves. Because again, as I stated earlier, lived experience being treated as anecdotal. Oh, that's just you. So it's speculation. It's not real. The reality is that when Adrian talked about being in spaces and feeling isolated, that's something that I've always felt. I'm going to be 40 years old this year, and I still feel that way. And the reality is that we no longer have a place and space to make people feel comfortable. Yes, have grace. Yes, be polite. But ain't no more time for us to handhold folks and explain shit to people that they should have known. We are on cell phones and digital devices. You got a phone that is made by Google, and yet you can't Google things. Intellectual laziness is a problem, and it is hurting us. Not only that, when we look at the idea behind, for example, misinformation, which is something that we must fight in climate justice, we don't have inflation. People don't realize that these companies shrunk the bottles of Coca-Cola and put them up and raised the price by $2 and made it look like, oh, this is happening. But the contradiction is that there are more jobs, more people employed in the Black community than there has been since the Clinton administration. And the reality is that when we talk about our food and our health, it's about teaching people who to be mad at. When we wanted schools to be kept open before the TEA took them over, I damn near went to jail. There were people who put groups together. Some of you may be in the chat. We canvassed the neighborhood. You can't just block walk for your favorite candidate. Put them flyers together. Get your friend who works at a school or university to make some free copies, put information on it, and knock these doors and say, listen, this is affecting you. This is the dot that needs to be connected. This is who you should be mad at. This is who you need to talk to. This is how we can do it. Information is the key, and making sure that this information is squelched and put down, and making sure that we're making those who have power or who are adjacent to power, who are using their voices to denigrate us and to take things away from us and make our lives harder for our everyday functions, we have to make them uncomfortable. We have to get in their face and start cussing. Ain't no more time for that shit.
Thank you, Ashton. I want to ask everybody, we may not need it, but I want to negotiate for an additional 10 minutes if we need it and want it, just because I don't want to interrupt anybody. Okay, well then let's keep going. Adrian.
So to agree with what Ashton was saying, yeah, I think people just like allies don't want to acknowledge what's happening outside of their own individual communities. Like if something isn't really affecting them, they just kind of choose to ignore it, and like they expect you to like be nice to them about it. But people just don't want to be uncomfortable with stuff because like if it involves like something that doesn't affect them but was done by people of like their like race, like they don't want to be uncomfortable about it, they don't want to have to speak up about what other people did, and like they don't want to, like they want to be an ally but they don't want to have to own up to stuff. But yeah, that's just how I felt.
Thank you. And I wanted to give the three of you a chance. Just kind of popcorn it real quick. If y'all had any follow-up kind of thoughts or anything before we start to go into some of the questions. I'm gonna give the first question to PK, but if y'all will just kind of keep your comments and questions brief. If you have one you want to put in the chat and we don't get to it, I will send it to the speakers and whoever else was on here and see if we can get answers for you. So any thoughts from the three of you? How you think this call went? Something that came from it that you're wanting to move forward with it, something somebody else said? All right. PK, would you like the first question / comment? You are on mute. Tap to mute. You're still on mute. PK, you're still on mute.
Yeah,
There
I
you
keep
go.
trying to.
I know, and when people are watching, it's even harder.
I thought it was frozen for a minute. You know, one of the things that I'm listening to, and people have used the word allies several times. I thank you, Adrian, and my son of another mother. that one person told me one day she didn't need another ally. And that's kind of saying, I don't need another friend. I need somebody that's going to stand with me, in front of me, and for me. And I think this conversation deserves more than a half an hour conversation. And I'd like to see us really strengthen the ties to create safe communities. It saddens me that we're at a place where people want to go backwards. I'd like to see us go forward.
Thank you. Okay, and so do we have any questions or comments? And again, please
Just
step
real
back
quick,
for a second. Go
just
ahead,
real quick.
please. Yes, of course. My brother from another mother.
Um, the reality is that I think people need to recognize and acknowledge the fact that we have made so much change. I remember being 14 years old as a freshman in high school, starting the first gay straight alliance in a high school in the city of New Orleans with 4 other people, and the hell that I went through with that. Please understand that acknowledging the change that we've built, acknowledging the improvements that we've made, helps us to protect what we already have so that we can look to the future and continue to build what we need in order to have structures that are conducive to people that that allow us to not be othered or classified as deviant. Number one. Number two, when we're talking about allyship, and I can't stress this enough, I don't have allies. I have accomplices. If I bleed, your ass better bleed. If I go to jail, you go to jail. If I'm hungry, you hungry. We have to get past this thing where it's not just you showing up at a protest or you showing up. It's not about you giving money to somebody who needs something to eat. It's about making sure that everybody's fed. It's about making sure that everybody has the equal chance without the consternation of, oh, well, you got 10% more than I did. Or speaking on what Adrian said, the level of comfort and therein lying the privilege, male privilege, cisgender privilege, white privilege, pretty privilege, all these different things. Acknowledging that and saying that when someone in the room that we're talking about is the marginalized group, why are they not talking? Why are they not being asked the questions? And also, why are we making sure that there's not an abundance of folks who may have those specific identities in the room, so that some folks are not being tokenized or being felt as though they're put on the spot, and also making sure that we're not treating issues as monolithic.
Thank you, Ashon. And that's part of why I wanted to get, well, I was looking. I was digging everywhere. I see a couple of hands up, but first, before I give those questions over, I'm gonna give the floor to some Black or queer folks first. If you have any questions or comments, please come off mute and go ahead and talk. Anybody? All right, I saw Pastor Deb first. Go ahead, Deb.
Thank you so much. Disabled and Quaker, ally and accomplice of all of the above. Ashton, I want to tell you how much it means to sit here and listen to you. I read you quite often on Facebook. I don't think we've met in person because you haven't been here and I don't leave my place. You're welcome to come here sometime. I'd love to have a talk. I know you're too busy, but I want to say this about accomplices, and that is this. Whether we're looking at each of our schools in our neighborhood or each of our neighborhoods, I would just like to say that I'd like to see neighborhoods start refusing proclamations and certificates and attaboys from these elected officials. I've got a drawer of them over here from Sylvester Turner and Adrian Garcia and many more. And so here's the deal. If we are lacking in ours and others are lacking, we're all in lack. But if we stick together and don't let them just fix a Band-Aid on one piece, everywhere in the city of Houston, between complete community and livable place is incomplete and unlivable. And Northline will take the cake. 60,004 zip codes. We have been left intentionally on I-45 between Greens Point and downtown just to come and get us. The dinner bell's ringing. So what I want to say about that is I read up on all of y'all's neighborhoods. I try to follow all of the inequity and injustice. But when it's solved in one place, I feel like a lot of times people forget that it's not solved in all, and we should value our city how it treats the lowest neighborhood. Set aghast. We're a few points above them in life points, but who's talking about them tonight? See, if we're not all here. So I think if we keep all the low income neighborhoods, all the underserved, all the injustices, and we don't accept small pieces and small fixes and attaboys and proclamations. That's where I'm at. I'm old, I'm a Quaker, and we're used to doing things sort of stubbornly. But I'm here to observe and absorb, and I'm here to really learn a lot from all of you. And I want to thank all of you for your talk on allyship and especially accomplishment. Thank you, Ashton.
I just want to say, I don't know why I didn't think of it, but I saw Ash's face while you were talking, and you two would love each other. I see Helen's hand up.
Yes, I so much appreciate Jamie organizing this session. And also, I also especially appreciate all of the panelists sharing their perspectives and their experiences. It's very, very eye-opening and expanding all of our collective consciousness to see who are, really in need of help and to be together in this. I have, as I mentioned, my interest is in climate healing and also personal effectiveness. I have a question for leaders here, and especially the panelists. In my view, that you are facing so many challenges and multiple fronts, right? Here we're talking about climate justice, but you probably also face economic issues, social issues, and all kinds of things, so as we could imagine. So how do you put yourself out there, and what have you done to make yourself personally effective and also make your community effective? That's something I'm curious of. And that is really important to share with our whole community, because many of us probably have similar challenges, or maybe less of a challenge, but still, how do we work effectively confronting so many challenges all rising at the same time? And that is what I've been thinking and struggling for a long time, especially in today's social political environment, where we're literally, shocked and awed, by other people who bombard us with so many problems, and we're facing so many crises at different fronts.
Thank you for that question, Helen. Anybody want to take a bite at that? We can get a couple answers. Ashton?
I can ask you that question. Like, what are we doing with the AAPI community, right? And so when you think about, I look at it like this. Just because I'm marginalized does not mean other people are not marginalized. I always say that I'm a human rights activist with a pro-Black twist. That means saying what needs to be said, even if it makes me unpopular. Mama PK and Jamie and a couple other people on here can attest to the fact that I might have made a Facebook post or said something on the news that people totally disagree with it, like less than a week later, oh shit, he was right. He said something and we thought he was lying and he was exaggerating, because he comes off as the angry Black man as opposed to an expressive person who is sharing information, and it's hard to digest. So the reality is making sure that we again are opening up and building the spaces for people to come in and lead those spaces while we are in the background, step up, step back, providing the support for them to have the things that they need in order to have those types of communications. And also, aside from your different trainings and things like that, go further by saying, look, acknowledge that you might be uncomfortable having this conversation, but also imagine what will happen when you get it off of your chest. Imagine saying the things that needs to be that not only that help you directly, but help people who look like you or people in your community of different identities, to the point that you don't have to take a deep breath before you put on the shirt to leave out of your door. Because this is about mental and physical health here. We're not just talking about the outside factors that affect the mental and physical, but how we are allowing ourselves to show ourselves love by making sure that we know it's okay to say no when we want to say no. It's okay to say yes when we want to say yes. It's okay to change our minds about things. It's okay to say that this is hurting me and what you're doing has to stop. And I think that we've gotten to this place, especially in the last couple of years of the kumbaya, that we forgot the path. Like, what are we going to do? Like, don't reinvent the wheel. It's a simple formula. We've done it for decades. Get out there and make people uncomfortable, but also build community. I always believed in when I organized protests for BLM Houston and with other groups, is that you don't leave without knowing the name of the person in front of you, to your left, your right, and behind you. It's not just about hearing what has to be said on a megaphone or at the podium. It's about you meeting people who may be like-minded, but also live in different realms that experience different things that you might not have experienced. And that's how we are able to like speak, because it's like taking a deep breath. Oh my goodness, you too? Or just you're tired. And also teaching people what to name things. And I mentioned that earlier. Knowing how to name the hurts, knowing how to name the damage, and knowing how to identify the truth from the different disinformation allows us to better speak about the issues that we're having.
Thank you, Ashton. Thank you to all of our speakers. I'm just like, I wish, and I agree, PK, that we should. I would love, okay, so our summit's gonna be this June. There's all kinds, I mean, this June, this fall, as soon as we find the venue. But we're looking hard. Let me just get back to do this real quick. We do have just a couple of announcements real quick. If you have announcements that you're wanting to make, please put them in the chat. I'll send them out with the notes likely tomorrow. We are looking for volunteers for these following committee positions. The steering committee one that's open right now is the co-chair for the Climate Action Committee. You could also work with PK, helping with some of these communication things. These are just different ways you can work with me on that. Disabilities. All of these here. And again, I'll send these out, and you can bring the like Ashton said, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. So you can bring it with you, whatever it is you're working on. Let's build the web and be stronger. Our next meeting will be July 16th, third Tuesday of every month. And then I will ask for everyone to give one word of how they feel leaving this call. And I'm already unmuted. I'm going to, and Herman, if you'll just give it a couple minutes after we're done, just for goodbyes, please. And thank you so much for letting me do the meeting tonight. My word is motivated. Next, Helen.
Inspired. Next,
Herman.
Noma. Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I
can
thought
do-
we're doing popcorn.
No, you can do that. Go ahead.
I said Noma.
Nora. She's picking you. Norma. Okay, we'll come back to her. Okay, let's go with Pastor Deb.
Prepared.
All right, Herman.
Informed.
PK. Come back to her. Ashton.
Curious.
Danny.
Transformed.
Haley. Mesha.
Oh, sorry. I
Oh,
was
go
looking
ahead.
for my unmute. Inspired.
Mesha.
Intrigued.
Genesis. Genesis? How about PK? Okay, well, if either of them come off mute, they can put something in there. Yay, Sarah says, we miss Sarah. Thank you all for doing this. I really appreciate it. You've seen all the different committees we have and the different types of work we do. If you're interested in working with us, you can contact us at HoustonClimateMovement@gmail.com. HoustonClimateMovement@gmail.com, and I will send that out with the notes. Thank you all so very much, and I hope you have a wonderful evening. I didn't realize I wasn't on video. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Good night.
Oh, I have a question.
Let's go for a
Oh, yeah.
second.
Nora,
I'm
Nora, what's your word?
invigorated.